is through training. And I train people on public engagement, I train people on policy engagement, I look at social media, planning, public events, also presentation skills. But today I've been asked to talk to you about evaluation. And when it comes to evaluation, particularly of kind of academic impact, it's challenging. And I've often been accused of trying to turn engagement projects into data sets and spreadsheets. Now, maybe this room likes that, but there is a bit of a pushback. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I try and help researchers show the inherent value they know their work is having. So they are out there engaging with policymakers, they are out there engaging with the public and media, they are doing things which they know to be a valuable use of their time. But how do you show that to an external observer? That's what we need to think about. Also, the timer didn't reset, so I'm just going to keep on talking longer than that, if that's okay. So give me a nudge when I'm approaching time. Does it go negative? I don't know. I'll pay attention. Anyway, I digress. And I want to talk about Star Wars. And look at what an evaluation plan for Star Wars would look like. Now, there's a couple of reasons for using Star Wars as an example. I am a massive geek, and I like talking about Star Wars. It's something I enjoy. The second reason, and the more fundamental reason, is I often find that to understand processes, you need to remove yourself from specific contexts. The further you zoom out from a process, the more transparent things can become. So let's look at what an evaluation plan of Star Wars might look like. It does contain spoilers. Imagine you are no longer a researcher, you've abandoned your research career, you are instead Luke Skywalker, sitting down with Princess Leia, going over your year ahead, setting the whole P&DR objective thing. They cut this from the film for understandable reasons. Anyway, what's your goal? Well, if you're Luke Skywalker, the goal is pretty clear. You are aiming to blow up the Death Star. That's what you're trying to achieve. Brilliant. Clarity of purpose. For your engagement work, what is it you are trying to achieve? What do you want to start happening, stop happening? What is going to be different because of your work? The next thing we need to identify is a project method. How are we going to go about this? We're aiming to blow up the Death Star, and we're going to do that by firing torpedoes into the exhaust port. Now, this is not an evaluation plan. This is the beginnings of a project plan. We know what we're trying to do, and we know how we're going to do it. If we turn that into an evaluation plan, we need to identify markers of success. This is something which is going to demonstrate that we have been successful against our aim. And researchers often overthink these. Don't. We are aiming to blow up a Death Star, and we know we will be successful if the Death Star has blown up. Sometimes it's as simple as putting your aim into the past tense. Now, this is still not a full evaluation plan, because we need at least one other piece of information, and that is an evaluation method. How will you observe, record, or demonstrate the marker of success? Now, handily, Han Solo is close enough to the Death Star that when it explodes, he's able to look out the window of the Millennium Falcon, see it explode, report back that it's blown up, therefore the aim has been successful. And that is what we need to do with our engagement projects. What are you trying to do? How are you going to go about it? How will you know if you have been successful? And what will you do to observe or record that marker of success? I also want to define or redefine 3 words for you. Words that you probably have your own working definitions for, but if you can adopt mine, the rest of the session will make a little bit more sense. Impact, outcomes, and output. I'd like to think about impact as the cumulative overall effect of your project. When you take everything and sum it all up together, the overall change, the umbrella term, is impact. Underneath impact sits outcomes. Outcomes are discrete changes and benefits, something which is different afterwards. Output, now this is the biggest departure from the academic world. We're used to thinking of output as the paper, the article, the journal piece, which is produced following the research process, not in the engagement world. I want you to think about output as anything which is made, created, or done. And now we can break things down. So impact, cumulative overall effect, outcome, discrete change or benefit, and output, anything which is made, created, or done. To get our head around that, I want to give you an example. The example I want to think about is school. I like to think about school not as the educational system that it is, but as an engagement system. You have a black box where a child enters this system around aged 5. They go through a multi-year intense engagement experience, and then they emerge out the other end. I'm going to give you the impact of that, and then I'm going to ask you for some suggestions on the outcomes and the outputs. I'm going to pose to you that the impact, the overall cumulative effect of school, is to have a young person more capable of an independent path than they otherwise would have been. Now that is a complex statement and involves lots of different changes along the way. But basically, child enters, goes through a system, and when they emerge, more capable of an independent path than they otherwise would have been. So let's go down a level. Discrete changes along the way. Any ideas? Changes and benefits associated with school.
Able to read.
Able to read. Excellent. What else?
I mean, able to do arithmetic.
Able to add.
Able to add. Yes. Able to read, able to add.
More confident.
More confident.
Independent learner.
Independent learner.
Able to
Social
negotiate with peers.
Social skills. There's another one here.
Able to negotiate with his peers.
Able to negotiate with peers. Now these are great ones. To tighten it up, whenever we talk about outcomes, I always encourage you to use language of change as well. So for example, you said social skills. Now I accept social skills will be an outcome, but imagine I didn't understand what you were on about with social skills. Are you trying to get rid of social skills? Are you trying to enhance social skills? We want to be really, really explicit and clear. Like Katie, you said more confident. Now that gives us parameters. We want to increase confidence. If we decrease confidence, we are failing in what we set out to do. So we always include a language that says something like enhanced, improved, acquired, decreased, increased, gives us direction. So now we are saying child is more capable of an independent path, and that child will have the ability to read, the ability to, an enhanced ability to deal with mathematical problems, increased social skills, the ability to work with peers, lots of changes which cumulatively help that person on that independent path. So what about outputs then? That system, now the young person isn't going to be our output here, that system that we have created, what is made, created or done during and through school? Suggestions on that? This can be harder until you switch into the...
Exam results.
Interesting. I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it in a special little box down here. We will come back to exam results. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, special case.
Oh, I can't wait to find out.
What was that?
Social networks.
Social networks, yes, so that's something that we're going to create. We are putting people together, we're creating artificial constructs that are putting people together. Yes, we will create a social network.
You mentioned something at the beginning, being able to be independent after coming out of the system. You used the word independence.
I did, but that independence, which is going to be fostered, that independence which is going to grow, is a little bit more outcoming. So rather than making independence, the independence is something that is changing the benefit. So we're going to call that an outcome.
Finger paintings.
Finger paintings, yes! The kids are going to do finger paintings. What else? Social networks, finger painting.
Report cards.
Report cards in the special little box. Special little box.
Produce homework and projects.
Yes, homework, projects. Knowledge, interesting. Knowledge is going to increase or decrease or change. So knowledge is going to be an outcome. How do you change knowledge? What do you do in order to change knowledge?
Why would you put experiences like sports days?
Absolutely an output. We create sports days. It's something which is made, it is created, it is done. We have a sports day.
Day trips. School trips.
Absolutely, day trips, school trips.
Lesson plans.
Lesson plans, yes, there's millions. School's complex, there's a lot in it. And what we do is we start lining things up. We start tying these together. And we can say, like, I'll give you probably the most important sentence I'll say today. We do make or create things which cause changes which have a cumulative effect. So important, I'm going to say it again. We do make or create things which cause changes which have a cumulative effect. And this is the way that we draw a straight line between the activities, the things that we are doing, through to the change that we're fostering. Child paints 5 pictures. Output, made, created, done. Child has improved artistic expression, the change which is fostered, contributing to a young person more capable of an independent path. Child writes 5 essays. Output, made, created, done. Child is now more proficient in the use of English language, contributing to a young person more capable of an independent path. Child forms 3 friendships. Child is better socially connected, contributing to an independent path. We do make or create things which cause changes which have a cumulative effect. Now the box with the exams and the grades, does anyone know what those might be? If I'm not calling them outputs, outcomes or impacts, what might those serve as? Evaluation, the markers of success. If I'm going to say this pupil is now more proficient in the use of English language, and an external observer comes and says, prove it. How do you know? I say, well, let's look at their work when they started school. Let's look at the work when they finished school and show there's a demonstrable improvement. If I'm going to claim that the child is more proficient in the use of English language, I'm going to prove it by grades, exams, qualifications. A demonstrable improvement in their ability to deal with English. That's how we evaluate it. And I thought I wanted to kind of share with you some statements of evidence. Because what makes good evidence, right? That's how we kind of plan out a project to make it a little bit easier to evaluate. But what makes good evidence? I wanted to ask you this. And I've got a Mentimeter for you to try. I'm going to bring this up on screen. And so hopefully you're familiar enough with Mentimeters. I'll start this. To join in with this, you can scan the QR code that is on screen, or you can go on a device to menti.com and enter in the PIN number which is on screen. That's 450-49153. So 2 ways of joining in, either scanning this QR code or typing in the code on menti.com, 45049153. And what I'm going to be asking you to do is rank some statements of evidence. I've gathered some statements of public engagement, and I want you to rank them from strongest piece of evidence through to weakest piece of evidence. So let me move on to that. Hopefully you managed to scan the QR code. The PIN number will stay on throughout regardless. But here are your statements. I'm going to hide the results, give you a chance. So these are the statements I want you to rank strongest to weakest. Farmers reduced needless antibiotic use. Spoke to 257 people at a drop-in maths event. Featured on TV to 89,000 people. Participants were able to identify more causes of low blood pressure than they were before. 81% of people pledged to reduce their household energy use by 5%. Most interesting event I've been to for a long time, Mrs. Costello, audience member. Rank those statements of evidence from strongest to weakest. I just want to hide the results. I'm biasing you now because you might copy what other people have done. Don't let other people influence you. It's difficult to put them in just a linear scale, say this is better than the others. But if any of you are involved in ref, this is like a mini ref exercise. The average ref case study is reviewed in 9 minutes, which is terrifying, isn't it?
Well, I mean, they got a lot to do, to be fair.
But the idea that that judgment is made in less than 10 minutes, a judgment is being made that affects tens of thousands of pounds of income for universities is terrifying.
I reckon
So just give you a few more seconds, just have your best guess, and then we'll go through what these statements mean.
We did a bunch of this with rec.
And this is difficult, you know, you're getting a sentence to go on. It's missing a lot of context, but we'll see what you're thinking anyway. So, I'm going to bring up the results now. They might still change as people are still making their final decisions. I realise I've not given you long at all. Some final results flying in there. Okay, so let's have a look. 81% of people pledged to reduce their household energy use. Farmers have reduced needless antibiotic use. Participants are able to identify more causes of low blood pressure. TV, drop-in event, Mrs. Costello, poor Mrs. Costello, least useful piece of evidence. So why? Why did you rank some above others? What ones did you like and why?
How specific they were.
How specific? So we like a specificity. So that's what my 81%, we're getting a number. Yeah?
Whether there's evidence of change, whether
Evidence
there's
of
evidence of change in behaviour.
Yes, interesting. Change in behaviour. Was that what you were going to say as well?
I kind of, and I was going to say I therefore ranked 81% below the two where people actually had a thing that had happened. So farmers have reduced needless antibiotics use has actually changed a thing. 81% of people have pledged to do something. They haven't done the thing. They just told you what you told them to tell you.
Interesting. Yeah. So we're starting to look at them in a couple of different ways. We can look at specificity. So are we getting numbers? Are we getting data? Is this specific? We can look at it. Is it demonstrating a change? If it's demonstrating a change, what kind of change is it demonstrating? And then we are prioritizing different types of change. When I get data like this, if I'm reading something like a ref impact case study, so I consulted on about 80 different cases for the last round, I ask myself, what does this data mean? What does it mean? I try and remove the context and look at them. So the first one, 81% of people pledge to reduce their household energy use. What does that mean? What change has happened? Well, it is difficult to speak to a change. What I can say is that in that moment, people felt desirous or capable or confident of change. So for me, that's maybe a kind of change in perception. They are thinking about something and feeling capable of doing it. Farmers, they've stopped doing something. Change in behaviour. Low blood pressure, they are now able to identify more causes. That's an increase in knowledge. What has changed? Knowledge has changed. Featured on TV, spoke to people. What changed? Difficult to say. A thing happened. Right? A thing happened and people interacted with it. Mrs. Costello, what changed? Mrs. Costello had an interesting time. I can't really extrapolate much more than that. She had a lovely time. And that's what we do. So for me, probably I would have ranked the farmers above, but that 81% is alluring, isn't it? It's like, oh, that's a big number. And so we're battling all of these changes. What is specific? What is robust? What changes are we talking about? I wanted to pick up on one that I did expect you to rank quite low as well. 89,000 people on TV. That's a really interesting one because this is a kind of statement I've seen time and time again in ref impact case studies. I went on TV and people saw it. And I want to do it almost kind of like role play with you. Imagine I am the BBC producer, right? And yesterday you came on my TV show. 89,000 people have watched it, and I've come along to you to say, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on my show. Now, in a minute, I'm going to walk out that door. You might never see me again. Is there anything you want to ask me before I disappear out your life? So thank you very much for coming to the show. Anything you'd like to know?
What's the normal number of people who would have seen that show?
About 250,000. Sorry.
Oh.
Have you had any feedback?
Not yet. Too early days. Just because it was last night, not had a chance to gather anything yet.
Why did you decide to feature me? Why did you let me on the show?
Because you are the expert. I asked around and it had to be you. You have risen the profile of this topic to a national level. Because of the previous work that you've done, the articles you've written for the conversation, the interviews you've done in the media, you're the go-to person.
Will you follow up with me on this topic in the future? Would you return back?
Would I be willing to work with you again in future? Absolutely, yes I would. And I'd be happy to have a little chat later about how we might reincorporate that topic again in future episodes. Anything else?
Anything I could have done better?
Let's go with no. I thought you were absolutely brilliant. I thought you explained things in a really clear, memorable way. I thought it was pitched at a fantastic level. I have to say that because Tamandra trained me.
I totally believe you.
Yeah.
Will you pass on any questions or feedback?
I'm going to say they are probably not going to come to me, so I might not see them. I would suggest that you maybe like go online, see if there's something that you can find. 1 minute.
Can you write down some of those quotes about how great I am for my rapid impact case study?
I can. Yes, even better. You write one for me, and I'll sign off on it.
Fantastic.
And this is what we're doing. It is a horrible game to play sometimes, but this is what we're doing. One researcher will walk in, and they will say, "I was featured on BBC One to an audience of 89,000 people," and that will sound very nice. I will walk in, and I will say, I was featured on BBC One to an audience of 89,000 people. I was given the opportunity because of the previous success and the work that I'd done. I've been able to raise the profile of this topic to national level. The producer, who has 10 years experience in producing this type of documentary, said that I was one of the best contributors he has seen in recent years. And we're actively exploring opportunities to work together in future. I now have a very good working relationship with the BBC. This is also the first time this topic has ever been featured on this programme. That is two very different stories. From what is, you rank as quite a weak piece of information, you can very easily get supplementary information that raises that to a really compelling statement. So it's about not just what data we're capturing, but the narrative that we weave around it. And that's what I help researchers do. I think that's my time up. So I'll say thank you very much.
5 minutes for some questions for Jamie. Well, I feel people are throwing them up throughout. Yes.
So I was interested by thank you, Jamie, that was great. I was interested by the examples that you used, because there was one thing that occurred to me is that perhaps you could also count as an evaluation metric the element of choice that the audience are demonstrating. So, for example, if they come to a drop-in maths event, they've chosen to go out and go to a drop-in maths event, and so there's that element of active change of behaviour in actually choosing to engage, no matter whether you were then any good at explaining, you at least got them through the door. How would you measure that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, because actually sometimes that might count as a negative as well. Because if something is advertised as a maths event and people have come along, then before they've interacted with you, they are actively interested anyway in maths. So it might actually be interesting to look at the opposite of that. We brought maths to a place where people were not expecting to encounter maths, and that could actually be a more valuable story that we could tell. The way we would capitalise on that as well is looking at further opportunities. So they came to this supermarket, they didn't expect to engage with maths, we engaged with them, they had such a positive experience that actually several of the groups have followed up with us, and now they're doing a weekend class, now they're doing an evening class. So we could look at not why they choose to engage with us in the first place, but we could certainly look at their subsequent choices to see if they weren't interested in maths, but now they are off exploring their own maths encounters. So subsequent choices maybe more than the initial choice.
Yep.
And can I just ask, and this isn't really about the content, I was just wondering about the subtitles.
Yes.
So I am hard of hearing, so I really appreciate having subtitles on my presentation, so thank you. Could I just ask how you put that up, and what kind of response do you get? Is there a reason that you've chosen to put it up? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. A lot of people ask about them. Most people don't know that they're there. They are built into PowerPoint, so to turn them on, you just click, like subtitles. You can, under slideshow setup, you can choose always on. The only different thing that I do is I wear a microphone because I move away from my laptop. So if you've got a Microsoft 365 subscription, literally you just click inside the option. You can also choose what language they appear in, so you can speak in English and have them translated. Translation is far from perfect. The reason I have them is purely an accessibility measure. So my presentation skills training is very much for people who might not feel confident, who are kind of more introverted, and we think about how people are comfortable in the presentation space and how our communication is as accessible as possible.
Ben?
Thanks, Jamie. Could you comment briefly, I know we're pushing time.
No, ever. I'll try.
Fair enough. Then comment, as you will, on the difference between getting data that you just talked about for evaluation purposes and getting data and feedback for your own purposes and reflecting on your practice. Is there a difference, and what do you notice is the difference?
Sometimes there's a difference and sometimes there's not. So I would say that for our own improvement, we need to be open to receiving negative feedback. If you get feedback and it's all positive, that is useless data. There's nothing you can act on that. So being willing to listen and say, okay, I didn't get this right, thank you very much for sharing, I can act on it. When it comes to something like ref, they don't care if you are improving, they just want the success. So if I'm evaluating something to improve, I'm actively looking for things I could do better. If I'm evaluating purely in a ref capacity, I'm just looking for how successful have I been. So that's the slight difference.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap up there, but we are obviously got the networking drinks afterwards to continue to pick your brains afterwards. Thank you very much.